Imagine life as a vast and enchanting garden. In this garden, each flower is unique, carrying its own color, shape, and fragrance, reflecting our emotions, dreams, and experiences. There are flowers that bloom with intensity, bringing joy, and others that, in their delicacy, demand attention. Yet all have something in common. Beauty is always accompanied by fragility. A garden to remain alive requires a gardener, someone to water its roots, prune the dry branches, and protect its petals from the elements. So too is our soul. We are like this garden, and God is the supreme gardener. He understands every detail of our soil, every flower that blooms within us. But often, in our eagerness to control everything, we take on the role of gardeners in our own lives. We try to water where there is already an excess, or we ignore the areas that need the most attention. In this neglect, weeds grow without us noticing. Fear, frustration, and resentment, silently creeping in, begin to suffocate the lightness and peace that we should be nurturing. Allowing God to care for your garden is more than a choice, it is an act of surrender. It is recognizing that He knows the timing of each flower and understands exactly what it needs to bloom. While we, limited in vision, can only see the surface, God works in the roots, strengthening the invisible so that the visible transforms into beauty. And when we trust fully in this divine gardener, we realize that even storms have a purpose: to water the soil so that life can blossom more vibrantly. Nature has its own rhythm, a dance of balance between time and purpose. Just as the cycle of the seasons governs the fields and gardens, our lives also follow distinct phases, where each moment plays an essential role. Flowers, no matter how beautiful and lush, do not bloom all year round. They adhere to the cycle that is imposed upon them: a time for planting, a period of quiet growth, and finally, the glory of harvest. However, between these visible milestones, there are pauses, moments of dormancy, when the soil rests and the roots work invisibly, hidden beneath the surface. In our journey, we face similar challenges. Often, we are overwhelmed by anxiety, desiring our efforts to bear fruit immediately. We want to see the flower of success bloom at any cost, forgetting that the waiting time is just as important as the time of harvest. Each season has a reason for being. Winter, cold and seemingly desolate, is the time when our roots sink deeper into the earth. It is in this period of retreat that we learn resilience, firm up our foundations, and strengthen our inner selves to endure the challenges that lie ahead. But how easy it is to become frustrated when we look at the garden of others. We see flowers blooming in someone else's field and wonder why ours is still empty, not realizing that each garden has its own calendar. There are no two identical springs, just as there are no two paths alike in life. Comparing our blooming to others is to ignore the uniqueness of the purpose that God has for each of us. His wisdom surpasses our understanding, and He knows exactly when and how each flower should bloom. When we surrender control to God, we learn that we are not at the mercy of the seasons. He is the Lord of time, the one who coordinates every detail with divine precision. Winter may seem endless, but it is in this period that the soil of our hearts is prepared. The lessons learned in the wait become the fertilizer that nourishes our dreams. And then, when spring arrives, we bloom not only with beauty but with strength and purpose. Surrendering the seasons of life into God's hands is more than an act of faith. It is an exercise in patience and trust. It is understanding that even the most difficult moments have meaning. Each fallen leaf, each cold wind, each gray day is contributing to the bloom that will come. And when our flowers finally open to the sun, we discover that the wait was not in vain. The garden of life becomes more than a landscape of beauty. It transforms into a testimony of growth, care, and divine love. In every garden, no matter how beautiful and well-tended it may be, there is always a silent threat: weeds. They appear discreetly, taking advantage of small oversights, infiltrating the most fertile corners. They don't need an invitation or special conditions to grow. All they need is an opportunity. Slowly, they begin to steal the nutrients from the soil, choking the roots of the flowers and preventing them from reaching their full potential. What was meant to be a space of life and beauty becomes a struggle for survival. In our lives, these weeds take invisible forms, but are equally devastating. They appear as unresolved hurts, resentments that accumulate and grow over time. They are the emotional wounds we refuse to treat, the words we never forgive, and the disappointments we choose to feed. Each of these weeds takes root in our hearts, draining the energy we should use to grow, dream, and bloom. They keep us tied to the past, making it difficult to believe in better days and fully trust in God. Unforgiveness is one of the most destructive weeds. It disguises itself as self-protection, as if holding on to grudges could shield us from new wounds. However, the truth is that this weed suffocates inner peace, preventing love and empathy from blossoming. Discouragement, in turn, is another treacherous weed. It appears slowly like a shadow, stealing our motivation and making us believe our garden will never be beautiful enough. Together, these weeds create a barren environment where the light of hope can hardly penetrate. Letting God care for our garden is recognizing that we cannot remove these weeds on our own. Often, their roots are so deep that only the attentive gaze of the divine gardener can fully see them. He knows where to cut, how to clean, and what to plant in their place. God acts not only as a gardener, but as the supreme cultivator, who knows every detail of the soil of our hearts. He understands that the beauty of the flowers depends on clean soil, free from the emotional toxins that bind us. When we allow Him to remove these weeds, we experience a profound transformation. It is as if our garden breathes again. The faith, once suffocated by doubts and hurt, begins to grow with vigor. The flowers of peace and joy start to bloom where sadness once existed. And by entrusting this care to God, we realize that He not only clears the land, but also plants new seeds of love, forgiveness, and hope. The process may not be easy. The removal of weeds can be uncomfortable because often their roots are so deep that pulling them out causes pain. But this pain is temporary and necessary for healing. Over time, we realize that a clean heart is the ideal ground for God's purposes to bloom. And then our garden becomes a reflection of divine grace, a masterpiece that not only delights us, but also inspires those around us to seek the same gardener who transformed our lives. Flowers, with their beauty and lightness, are also symbols of vulnerability. Each petal is a delicate masterpiece, crafted by nature to attract, enchant, and bring life to the eyes of those who observe. However, this delicacy also makes them susceptible to adversity. Scorching sun can burn their vibrant colors, strong winds can tear them from their stems before they even fully bloom. And in neglect, the brilliance of these flowers slowly fades as if they gave up on living. So are we, human beings, in the garden of life. We carry the beauty of flowers within us, the ability to inspire and transform the environment around us. But we also carry our vulnerability. Adversities come like gusts of wind, unexpected criticism, losses, external and internal pressures. The judgment of others, often relentless, strikes our souls like storms that try to strip away our hope. In these moments, the delicacy of our essence is tested, and our natural desire is to seek protection. Often, in an attempt to protect ourselves, we build walls around us. We raise walls of distrust, close our hearts to love and care, and distance ourselves from the connections that strengthen us. These barriers, which seem to shield us from the storms, often also block the light that helps us grow. The light of love, empathy, and the divine presence, essential to our soul, remains outside. And without this light, our essence weakens, like flowers wilting in the shadow. Allowing God to care for our garden is learning to trust that there is a higher protection, more effective than any wall we can build. God not only shields us from the storms but also teaches us how to face them. He is like a gardener who builds fences not to isolate us, but to protect us, while feeding us with everything we need to grow. His protection doesn't prevent us from feeling the wind, but strengthens us so our roots can deepen and endure. Even in the harshest conditions, when it seems that nothing else can bloom, God surprises us. He transforms barren land into fertile soil, using even the storms to water what once seemed dry. He not only removes the external forces that hurt us but also works within us, strengthening our roots, rejuvenating our leaves, and preparing us to bloom again. Trusting in divine protection is an act of courage and faith. It is letting go of the control we think we have and recognizing that, even when we don't understand the winds that blow against us, God knows exactly what He is doing. He teaches us that the storms don't come to destroy us but to prepare us. And when the clouds finally part, we realize we are stronger than we imagined. The delicacy of flowers is not a weakness but a gift. It reminds us that we are human, sensitive, and capable of growing through challenges. Under God's care, this delicacy becomes our strength because we trust not only in our ability to endure but in the certainty that, with Him as our gardener, there will always be a new season to bloom. Imagine walking through a perfectly tended garden. It's not just the visual beauty that captivates, there is something deeper, something that goes beyond what the eyes can perceive. It's the fragrance. The soft, enveloping scent that rises from the flowers reaches everyone who passes by, touching not just the sense of smell but also the soul. It's a fragrance that brings calm, joy, and inspiration. This aroma is not merely a result of visible beauty but of the invisible harmony that permeates the entire garden. A well-tended garden reflects an inner balance that goes far beyond aesthetics. It speaks of a dedicated caretaker, someone who knows the land, understands the needs of each plant, and commits to nurturing its vitality. Similarly, when we allow God to tend the garden of our hearts, our lives begin to reflect that inner harmony. The flowers of love, empathy, and resilience blossom, exhaling a fragrance that attracts and inspires those who cross our path. This spiritual fragrance is something that cannot be forged or manufactured. It arises from a peaceful heart, from a soul that surrenders to divine care. When God is the gardener of our lives, He removes everything that stifles our essence, hurt, resentment, and fear, and plants in us seeds of virtues that naturally grow and spread. The fragrance of a well-tended heart transcends words and actions, becoming a presence that comforts, warms, and transforms. The world around us desperately needs this fragrance. We live in times of disconnection, where stress and indifference often suffocate the flowers of the Spirit. But when we allow God to be the gardener of our hearts, He not only transforms us but also makes us agents of change. Our garden becomes a point of light amidst the chaos, a reminder that beauty and goodness still exist. Each flower in our garden has the power to spread seeds. The fragrance of divine care in our life is not something we keep to ourselves. It spreads, reaching those who may have never smelled the fragrance of hope or faith. By inspiring others, we plant seeds in the hearts around us, seeds that God, in His wisdom, will water at the right time. Allowing God to tend our garden is an act of surrender and trust. It's believing that He knows our needs, even when we don't understand the process. It's recognizing that the fragrance we emit, the result of His presence in us, can touch lives, heal wounds, and bring light to darkened hearts. A well-tended garden is not just a beautiful place, it is a testimony of transformation. Under God's care, we become flowers that not only live but illuminate, perfume, and inspire. Our fragrance becomes a reflection of divine grace, reaching places that perhaps our steps could never go. And so, God transforms our garden into not just a space of beauty, but a source of life for the world around us. And so, we come to the end of this reflection on the garden of life and the transformative power of allowing God to be the gardener of our hearts. When we entrust Him with the care of our flowers, we experience an inner rebirth that not only beautifies our journey but also touches the lives of those around us. May this message inspire you to cultivate your garden with love, patience, and trust, knowing that with God, there will always be a new season to bloom. If this story spoke to you, I invite you to give this video a like and share this message with someone who needs to hear these words today. Write in the comments what you love the most or how God has been tending your garden. I would love to know your experience. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Together we can spread more seeds of hope, love, and faith in this world. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time. Cherry Blossom.